Yeah, I mean, I totally believe in documentation. I believe in revival. I believe in art. That does not mean that I have not shifted on the other side completely. So it's amazing what I started with, because very objective, structured, like practical, no, about things, and then to look at the other side of the world, which is so fluid, so on the feet, on in the moment, and just living it rather than sort of talking about it. And I'm personally trying to find a middle ground for myself, and I believe in that middle ground. I believe that if we document, if we practice, if we refine is not the right word, but if we articulate, then it is easy possible to pass on, right? Because when I asked most of the folk artists, whenever we meet, we say, how do you teach? They say, who teaches? Nobody teaches. You pick up. Because there is no system. It's not like classical world. Classical world is very systematic, right? There's a greatness about that, but that's also why sometimes classical music or dance also don't connect easily with people, only with some people. Whereas folk has no system most of the time, not always. Some folk traditions have found their feet into also having a system. So I feel that all these processes are important, documentation, because if we don't see documentation or we don't read proper research, if Nina Sabnani wouldn't have written about it, I might have just lost and I might not have been able to continue. But it's a very responsible work. One need to document in a very important way. It cannot be just about capturing the fact. It has to be captured in a way that it can carry the essence to some extent. So that when one audience is looking at the video or reading the research or in whatever way, they can feel something. Because only then the bridge is connected. Only when people like me from the urban space will travel and experience and connect. So that is important, but it's a very, very difficult job is what I think. Because it's not just about capturing it's not about capturing the fact and putting it into museum as a historical facts. Because that's, I think, is not possible. Second, I think practice is important. The idea of practice is important, that I think any art form continues to survive only when there are people who are practicing it. The day people stop practicing the art form, it's done, it's gone. Even if we put it in museums or in whatever documentation. And for somebody to practice, there has to be some principles laid out. Like how I laid out actually 3 principles. One is the idea of multiple truths, the idea of that you can take it wherever, it does not need to end. And third is interconnected, because it comes from my research or whatever research we happen to do of the box. The box allows you to do that. Kavadiyas tell multiple kinds of story from the same painting. They don't get different paintings for different stories. So it is embedded in their work. They don't lay it out as how I laid it out, because for them it's not that important to lay it out that way. And that's a process which is what we are trying to do. You see, I'm not as powerful, as amazing as them, but I'm able to articulate certain principles which can then help somebody else to practice it and take it forward. Right? So that kind of work, I think, needs to be done and should be done in the revival work, if people are interested in revival or reinterpretation or reimagination of a tradition. Because it cannot take away the tradition, but it still has to lay out principles which are core to that practice. Again, it needs effort, it needs energy. It cannot happen like, oh, I go there, I look at something, I put it on a blog post. It cannot be that. It has to be much more than that. I'm right now trying to figure out what should be my rituals. Because there is so much value in beliefs and rituals, which I think you recognize as we begin to live life. Like when we are super young, when everything looks like, oh, we can do whatever we need to do, right? We don't recognize certain values and things which happens in your life. Like there are things which happened in my life personally. It allowed me to say, okay, stop. There's value in believing something. Like there's value in belief and rituals around it. Again, they don't need to be right in a scientific sense, but there has to be rituals because it allows you to go back. And so I am now traveling from this side to find what rituals I should have. Maybe 40 years down the line, if I'm alive, I might also say that like them that, oh, without ritual, this practice don't exist. But right now, I'm also taking steps towards creating rituals. Like, should I have rituals with Kavad? Should I have ritual in my own practice? Should I have ritual in my theater? Should we have a ritual? Like, there is the most basic ritual you will see in any theater room. Everyone will gather and they will stand in a circle. It is a ritual. Every single theater company I know, they do it without them recognizing it as a ritual. So, I don't know the answer, but what I know is there's value in rituals and we need to build new rituals maybe. Because those rituals are first religious, they are located in their reality. But my reality is different than their reality. And the whole point of folk art is that it belongs to people. It depends on what ritual these people will create. That is valuable. So if that society don't continue to exist, like it continue to exist right now, but maybe if they migrate to urban spaces or if the space changes, it is a change. And so new rituals have to be, or the same rituals have to be redefined in a new way. Yes, there are. There are Kavadiyas in Rajasthan. And last week, somebody from NID or NIFT, I don't remember, they called to interview about this Kavad thing. And she told me that because of the work we have been doing since past last 4 5, and our idea was very simple. So we picked up performing. I didn't really want to start performing the piece, but I said I couldn't find a middle ground. In a way, I can do something about the art form. Because my usual tendency is, okay, what can I do? Rather than sort of only questioning or only commenting on it, is there anything I can do? And I had no answer, and so I said, okay, I'm also an actor, I've also written this something, maybe we'll say reimagination of Kavad, at least people will know what Kavad is. And since then, a lot of people have researched, a lot of people have written scholarly material, a lot of people have picked up and performed. I now know that in storytelling circle, a lot of people now perform Kavad in terms of they bring the box and they do it, so it spreads the word. She told that because of this kind of work, government has started recognizing Kavad as an art form. So there are two parts to it. One is the painting and this beautiful box. So this is amazing and beautiful. And they are two different communities. So obviously government recognized painting as art form since beginning, but government don't recognize usually, or not just government, a lot of institutions don't recognize storytelling as art form. Because painting look like art, so obviously it is art. So they have commissioned Kavadiyas who make Kavad in their stalls. Government do these stalls, no, across cities and villages where they invite artists to showcase their work. So Kavad makers, they have kind of survived and they have found business. So now in a lot of stores, you will find these beautiful boxes. People in fact from outside India purchase this extensively. Because this is beautiful and you can put it keep it in your house. But the Kavadiyas, the storytellers, they have not found that space. And she told me that now they have started recognizing it, they have started inviting them. Which is what I'm very excited about. She said because of the work and videos which we see about you and things which has happened, suddenly they're like, oh, maybe we should invite. Obviously, they should not invite us because we are still contemporary people doing our stuff. But inviting them is an important milestone. So I'm still sort of finding more details about it and hope to see if now they are open to come, we should bring. So historically, this Kavadiya word comes from this yatra which happens in UP. And they carry this painting of Shiva, I think, Ardhanarishwar. They took this, yeah, right? And they travel. And they are usually called Kavadiyas. And they are, I think, them or some Pandits, I don't know. But there is this, I'm connecting two things. There is this entire tradition we have in India, no, about maintaining family history or maintaining family tree. So you go to a Pandit, you say, okay, your name, some new person has born, great. Oh, this person dead, great. Whatever, right? So they create a family, they maintain your family history. And this is an important work which people used to maintain and go for. It's part of ritual, a living ritual. They say historically, some of them traveled to Rajasthan 400, 500 years ago. And when they came to Rajasthan, they said, oh, when you come to me, why am I just telling you about who was your grandmother, who was your grandfather? Maybe I will tell you a story about them. Because Rajasthan, I don't know about UP because I come from Rajasthan, so I know that there's a lot of tradition about local gods and local heroes. For them, Ram and Vishnu, they are not very important gods. For them, this local Pabuji is more important. Right? This local god who is my village god is more important than like big shot gods. right? So they are like, then we should tell stories because that's the way you pass on wisdom. So now these people, Kavadiyas who came to Rajasthan, they started telling stories. And Rajasthan has this like what my grandmother did, what my grandfather did. It's very important to in Rajasthan. It's an important part. So they sort of seem to be transformed this idea of maintaining family history into oral storytelling form, and came the paintings. So the word basically means Kaavad in Rajasthan means door, like Kivad. It comes from a word called Kivad. So you are carrying a door. So there are so many doors it has, and it's like a temple with you because the Kavadiyas used to travel. That's a temple in itself. So there are multiple meanings to it, but that's their history. That's where they come from, and the reference is in UP. So, but there are many art forms which are about painting and storytelling. There are many art forms, but here it is actually about genealogy and how genealogy can be presented in a form of storytelling. Yeah. So the painter community is what last I met, they were very excited. So the person is like, oh my god, I'm going to obviously teach covered paintings to my son or my daughter, but I'm also going to make them CAs. He was very specific about making them CA. But he's like, if this is a business, this is going to thrive, they need to understand the money part of it. Because we don't understand money part of it really well. So when somebody is making order, we get confused. And so we want to educate our children. But Kavadiyas, on the other hand, the storytellers, not last time when I met, and this might be a very outdated information with the new thing which I heard, they were like, what they will do. And anyway, they said, you have to pick it up. So the way I also received that, so he said, no, you observe and you pick it up and you have to do it in your own way. There is no one way of performing Kavad. You have to do it your way. So I presented it to him, this is how I am thinking, what do you feel? He said, this is your way, keep going, keep doing it. So that's where the principles and those ideas, no, training sort of comes into picture. Because I see a lot of storytellers also use it, but the word use itself is tricky. Like they use Kaavad. And I'm like, no, it's, you can't use, like it's not, right? And that's where the principles training talk come about, that if I'm performing Kaavad, it means something to me. It has to have a relationship. That is still a tricky place. I don't know if they have started doing it or not. That's why all folk performers are always, I'm so much in awe with folk performers in general. They go to an energy level which is so difficult for an urban person to go. Something about the viscerality of their world, which I'm fascinated. I found that in my practice now, so I do a practice called Suzuki method. It comes from Japan. Mr. Tadashi Suzuki is the practitioner. He studied a lot of classical folk traditions. I said, what do we do? How do we be that powerful, that grand, without being grand? And so he studied and he developed a training called Suzuki method of actor training, where he's like minimal work. Don't do anything, just amplify energy. Because that's what traditional artists are good at. If you have looked at Thayyam as a performance or any ritualistic performance, it just changes the space energy. And there's a work going on around it in theatre world, which is not about just doing things on stage, but really building this visceral thing, which is also what Mr. Suzuki says is very important for society which is going to come forward, come after us, because they are always accessing technology, right? So we are, instead of taking stairs, we will take a lift. So instead of the work which the body should do, machine are doing that work, which means we are not using a kind of energy which he says animal energy for our life. And if we don't make use of that energy, it's going to create trouble. So he thinks that theatre training should be about that rather than about other things. But that I connect with the folk world and folk training. And I see that as a potential space where the folk world can meet the urban world. Because they have so much to offer, we don't know how to receive. No, traditionally also no music. I'm personally interested in collaborations. So recently we did a collaboration with the Yakshagana team from Udupi. Because I personally feel theatre, a kind of theatre is very limiting. And when you work with other art forms, it really demands more from you, and it also expands you. So I'm collaborating with Rohit. It is very simple. I have a story, but you interpret it your way. You design it in your way. I can't dictate what you should. That is what collaboration is. If I'm the director and I say, do this, do this, do this, this is what the music I want, then it's not a collaboration, it's just a teamwork. Right? So in collaboration, you allow the other collaborator to do the way they want to operate, and you find a way in between, because it allows everyone to expand. So even in the Yakshagana collaboration we had, it was a site-specific work, which included stories from a person named Ames. Now we are creating a theatre piece, and we know that for 3 days Yakshagana team is going to travel from Udupi and is going to find space in this thing. How? We have no idea. And those 3 days were open days, basically. Okay, this is the material we have created, this is the material Yakshagana team brings in, and the 3 days are about finding a more organic coming together. Obviously there are parts which needs work and time, but a lot of it just can come out really well. So that's, I think, collaboration, and that is again also I personally learned from Kavad, because that is what they do. So Khojaram ji told me, saal mein ek baar we meet, and I tell that this patron now has a baby, and they want this baby to sort of fly airplanes and all of that, and that's the information I will give. And then the painter will go back and paint with his own imagination in whatever panels and give me back the Kavad, and now I have to work with this Kavad, with what this person did. I'm like, this is such a fascinating idea, right? That the openness to work with material given to you rather than demanding कि ये चाहिए मुझे, ये चाहिए, इतने lights चाहिए, right? Thank you Karishma, thank you Tipoy, Creative Mornings.